Claire had never imagined herself as someone's stepmother. At 38, she built a life full of independence, late-night books, weekend markets, and quiet evenings. But everything changed when she met James Kind, stable, gentle. He brought calm to her stormy past, and when he proposed, she didn't hesitate. Moving into his two-story home in coastal Oregon felt like a fresh start. What she hadn't expected was Evan. James's son was 19, tall but closed off with dark hair that always fell into his eyes and a hoodie he never seemed to take off. He greeted her with polite but distant nods. At dinner, he barely spoke. He spent most of his time locked in his room upstairs, music leaking faintly through the walls. Claire tried not to take it personally. After all, he'd lost his mother years ago. And now his father was married to a woman who wasn't even 10 years older than him. That couldn't be easy. Still, something about Evan stayed with her. There was sadness in his silence, not rebellion or resentment, but something quieter. He seemed unsure of himself, like he didn't know how to take up space in his own home. Claire watched the way he moved, shoulders hunched, hands in pockets, eyes always on the floor. He reminded her of someone trying to disappear. One day, while folding laundry in the hallway, she paused outside Evan's room. The door was slightly open. She wasn't trying to snoop, but she heard his voice, low, frustrated. Talking to someone on the phone. Yeah, I'm going to the gym, but it's not helping. Doesn't matter how many push-ups I do, I still look like a kid. Not like my dad. Claire's hand froze on a towel. I mean, look at me. I'm not built like him. He looks like a man. I still look like I'm 16. I hate it. His voice cracked. And now she's here. His perfect wife. Of course she wouldn't notice me. Why would she? Claire didn't breathe. She quietly stepped away and went back to her room, heart racing. She didn't know what to think. It wasn't just that Evan was comparing himself to James. That was normal for a boy his age. But it was the way he'd said it. The tone, the pain. And the mention of her like she was part of the problem. It's part of the reason he felt small. She thought about it all night. In the days that followed, she saw him differently. Not as a quiet stepkid, but as a young man carrying something heavy, something invisible. He never said a word about it, but it was in the way he never took off that hoodie, even in the summer. The way he avoided mirrors in the hallway. The way he flinched slightly when James patted him on the back. Claire wanted to help. But how do you talk to someone who barely talks at all? Then one night, it just happened. She went downstairs for a glass of water and found Evan in the kitchen, standing in the glow of the fridge light, struggling with the toaster. He jumped when he saw her. Oh, sorry. I didn't think anyone was up, he mumbled. It's all right, she said softly. Midnight snacks are part of being human. He gave a nervous laugh and turned back to the bread. He looked thinner than she remembered, pale. You want grilled cheese? She offered. He hesitated. Yeah, that'd be cool. They ate at the small table by the window. The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of wind outside. Evan seemed more relaxed in the dark. Like the night made it easier to be himself. You don't talk much, Claire said gently. He shrugged. I guess I never know what to say. Well, she said, for what it's worth, I think you're more thoughtful than most people twice your age. He looked up at her, really looked at her, and said, no one's ever said that to me before. There was something vulnerable in his voice that caught her off guard. He wasn't cold or distant. He was lonely. After that night, Evan started showing up more. Small moments, here and there. He'd ask if she needed help with groceries. He'd hang around while she cooked. He'd walk the dog with her in the mornings, still quiet but open in a different way. Claire learned he liked photography. That he wrote poetry but never showed anyone. That he'd dropped out of his freshman year of college and wasn't sure if he'd go back. He was smart, sensitive, and surprisingly funny when he let his guard down. And once or twice she caught him looking at her when he thought she wasn't watching. Not in a rude or inappropriate way. Just different. Like he was trying to understand her one afternoon. As they sat on the porch watching the rain, Evan spoke quietly. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think people are just born confident? Or is it something you grow into? She looked at him. His hoodie sleeves were pulled over his hands. His knees bounced nervously. "I think everyone doubts themselves sometimes," she said. "But confidence comes from being seen. Really seen. And knowing you matter." He didn't reply, but she saw the way his eyes softened, the way his shoulders straightened just a little. Claire didn't know what was happening. She loved James. She was proud to be his wife. But something about Evan, his sadness, softness, was stirring something she couldn't name. She told herself she was just being kind, that she was helping him feel more like himself. But deep down, a quiet voice asked, what happens if he starts seeing you as more than a stepmother? And what happens if you don't stop him? After that quiet night in the kitchen, things between Claire and Evan shifted in a way neither of them expected. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, no big conversations or confessions, but small moments, soft changes. The kind you don't notice until they become too clear to ignore. Evan started spending more time outside his room. Instead of hiding behind his hoodie and headphones, he'd join Claire in the living room or help James in the garden. It was like a slow opening, a crack letting light in after years of darkness. One afternoon, Claire found him in the backyard, setting up an old camera on a tripod. She recognized it immediately. A vintage film camera, the kind she had loved as a teenager. She sat quietly nearby, watching him fiddle with the settings. "You really like photography?" she asked. He nodded, glancing at her with a shy smile. "It's the only thing that makes me feel normal, like I can see the world without feeling small." Claire wanted to ask what he meant, but she didn't push. She understood that sometimes people open up in their own time. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Evan spent more moments together walking the dog, sharing meals, even sitting in comfortable silence. Claire noticed how he was changing, less guarded, less tense, but also how much he still held back. One evening, James was away on a work trip. The house felt quieter without him. Claire was folding laundry when she heard a soft knock on the door. It was Evan. He looked different somehow, more vulnerable, but also more real. His hoodie was off, revealing his pale skin and a faint scar on his collarbone. Claire realized she'd never really seen him like this before. "Can I come in?" he asked. She nodded. They sat on the couch, a soft hum of the heater filling the room. "I don't know why I'm like this," Evan said suddenly. "Like I'm supposed to be a man, but I feel like I'm still a kid trapped in a body that doesn't fit." Claire listened, heart aching. He wasn't talking about just physical size. It was deeper. His voice cracked as he added, "I don't think my dad understands. He's everything I'm not. Strong, confident. And now you're here. And it's like, I don't even know where I fit." She wanted to reach out but held back, not wanting to overwhelm him. Instead, she said gently, "You don't have to fit anyone else's idea of who you should be. You're your own person." He looked at her eyes, searching for honesty, for a lifeline. "Do you think people like me can really grow up? Not just get bigger or stronger, but actually feel like themselves?" Claire's throat tightened. "Yes, but it takes time. And it takes kindness, especially from the people around you." Evan smiled a little, but sadness lingered. That night, Claire lay awake thinking about him. She felt drawn to him in a way that surprised her, maybe because she saw how fragile he was. Maybe because she recognized a loneliness she had once known. The next day, they spent hours together walking through a nearby park. Leaves crunched underfoot, and the air was crisp with a hint of fall. They talked about everything and nothing, music, movies, dreams. For the first time, Evan laughed freely. The sound, light and real. Claire felt the tension in her chest ease. She was starting to hope that maybe, together, they could heal something broken. But there was also a dangerous closeness growing between them. A look in Evan's eyes when he thought she wasn't watching, a lingering touch on her hand. The way he hesitated before stepping away. One afternoon, while organizing the garage, Claire accidentally picked up one of Evan's shirts. It was small, tighter than she expected, and smelled faintly of his cologne. She felt a strange flutter in her stomach and quickly put it down. She realized that she was noticing things about him that she shouldn't. Later, While making coffee, Evan surprised her by sitting close on the couch. "Do you think I'm too small?" he asked, breaking the silence. Claire blinked, unsure how to answer. "In what way?" she said carefully. "Everything," he said softly. "Not just my body. My voice, my presence. I'm afraid people don't see me." Her heart ached for him. "I see you, Evan, and I think you're more than enough." His eyes filled with something tender, gratitude, longing, maybe something else. From that moment on, their relationship became a delicate dance between care and caution. Claire wanted to support Evan without giving him false hope. She loved James and respected their family. But in those quiet moments, when the world slowed down, the distance between them seemed to shrink. One evening, while sitting on the porch watching the sunset, Evan turned to her. "Do you ever feel like you're meant for something different? Like there's a part of you you don't understand yet?" Claire nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. "I do. I think we all have parts of ourselves waiting to be discovered." He smiled softly. "Maybe I'm just scared of who I might become." Claire reached out and touched his arm lightly. Sometimes fear is just the beginning of something beautiful. They sat in silence, the moment fragile and full of unspoken feelings. Claire knew she was walking a fine line between being a stepmother, a friend, and something more complicated, but she didn't pull away. Not yet, because sometimes the heart wants what it wants, even when the mind knows better. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply be there for Evan, for herself, for a family learning how to heal as the weeks turned into months. The dynamic between Claire and Evan deepened in ways neither of them fully understood. James's frequent business trips meant long stretches where Claire and Evan were left alone in the quiet house, filling the silence with small talks, shared meals, and moments that felt more intimate than just stepmother and stepson. Evan seemed to grow more comfortable around Claire. His defenses lowered just a little. She noticed the way he sometimes caught her gaze and didn't look away immediately, as if searching for something unspoken between them. Claire caught herself thinking about him more than she wanted to admit, wondering about the line between care and something more complicated. One rainy afternoon, Claire was sorting laundry when she came across one of Evan's shirts, a simple, soft cotton t-shirt, much smaller than the baggy hoodies he usually wore. The shirt carried a faint scent she hadn't noticed before, a subtle mix of fresh linen and his subtle cologne. The smallness of it surprised her, the physical reminder of the insecurities he carried. She held the shirt for a moment longer than necessary, feeling an unexpected warmth in her chest. Quickly, she folded it and placed it back where it belonged. But the feeling lingered. Later that evening, Evan sat beside her on the couch, unusually close. He looked tired but open, like he wanted to say something but wasn't sure how. "Claire," he started, voice soft, "do you think I'll ever really grow? Not just taller or stronger, but into who I'm supposed to be?" She looked at him, seeing the vulnerability he hid so well. "I do," she said honestly. "It takes time, and sometimes it feels like you're not enough. But you are. You're already becoming who you need to be." He swallowed hard and looked down at his hands. After a moment, his fingers brushed hers light, hesitant. Claire's heart skipped. She knew that touch carried more meaning than simple comfort. For a brief moment, the world around them blurred. She pulled her hand back gently, reminding herself who she was: James's wife, Evan's stepmother. But inside, she felt a swirl of emotions, protectiveness, tenderness, and something far more dangerous over the next few days. Their interactions shifted subtly. Evan was more talkative, more present, but also more cautious, as if trying to understand his own feelings. One afternoon, while preparing dinner, Claire caught Evan watching her from across the kitchen. Their eyes met, and there was a softness there that went beyond family concern. He walked over, quietly closing the distance between them. "Claire," he said quietly, "sometimes I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm being real or just pretending to be okay." She reached out, touching his arm with steady kindness. "You're real," she told him. And it's okay not to have everything figured out. They stood close for a moment longer than necessary. The air was thick with unspoken thoughts. Claire could feel the line between them shifting, blurring. She knew she had crossed it emotionally, even if nothing physical had happened that night. Claire lay awake, wrestling with her feelings. She loved James deeply and respected the life they'd built. But Evan's quiet presence stirred something inside her she hadn't expected. A longing mixed with guilt and confusion. She kept reminding herself that boundaries existed for a reason. She was his stepmother. He was young and vulnerable, but her heart didn't listen. Meanwhile, Evan wrestled with his own emotions. He admired Claire's kindness, her patience, her strength. She made him feel seen in a way no one else had. But that feeling came wrapped in complications he didn't know how to face. One morning, James called to say his trip was extended. Claire found herself alone with Evan again. The house filled with a different kind of quiet. They shared breakfast, the morning light streaming through the windows. "I feel like I'm changing," Evan said suddenly. "But sometimes I'm scared I'm changing into someone I don't like." Claire reached across the table, her hand warm over his. "Change is scary," she said, "but it's also a chance to become something better." Their eyes met, and for a fleeting second, the past and future seemed to hang in the balance. Days later, while organizing the garage, Evan found an old photo album. He showed Claire pictures of his childhood, his mother smiling warmly in the sun. "I miss her," he said softly. "And sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to be her, or at least better than I am now." Claire wrapped an arm around him, holding him close. "You're not her," she whispered. "You're Evan, and that's enough." The comfort of that moment lingered long after they parted. But beneath the surface, their feelings continued to grow more complex. Claire knew the danger of what was happening. The emotional closeness, the longing in Evan's eyes, the way her heart beat faster when they touched. She fought the temptation. But sometimes, when the house was empty and the world felt still, she allowed herself to wonder, what if? What if boundaries didn't matter for a moment? What if they could give in to the feelings that were quietly pulling them together? But reality always returned like a cold wave. James was her husband. Evan was her stepson. They had to protect what little stability they had. One evening, after a long day, Evan came to Claire's room, hesitating at the door. "Can we talk?" he asked. She nodded, motioning him inside. They sat on the bed, the space between them charged with tension. "I don't want to ruin things," Evan said, "but I can't stop thinking about you. Not like family. Something more." Claire's breath caught. She wanted to reach out to comfort him, but also to pull away. "We can't," she said softly. "It's not right for any of us." "I know," he said, eyes shining with unshed tears. "But I had to tell you." They sat in silence, the weight of their feelings heavy. Neither wanted to hurt James or each other, but their hearts were tangled in a web of longing and confusion. After that night, things changed again. They gave each other more space, careful to keep their distance. But the unspoken truth hung between them like a fragile thread, waiting to snap or hold. Claire threw herself into her work and James's needs when he returned, trying to bury the feelings she couldn't fully name. Evan focused on his photography and writing, channeling his emotions into art. Yet, in quiet moments, they would catch each other's eyes, sharing a secret that belonged only to them. Because sometimes, love is not about possession or action. Sometimes it's about understanding the lines you cannot cross and feeling heartbreak for the love you never let begin. The tension that had quietly built between Claire and Evan lingered like a shadow over the house. They both knew the unspoken feelings, yet neither wanted to break the fragile balance they had managed to maintain. But life rarely stays quiet for long. One evening, James came home early from his trip. The familiar sound of his keys in the front door made Claire's heart race, not from fear, but from the reminder of the life she was tied to. Evan was already in the living room, looking up as James walked in. The moment was ordinary, but charged. Claire saw the way James smiled warmly at Evan, and then glanced at her with a tenderness that made her stomach tighten. For a second, she wanted to confess everything, the closeness, the feelings, the confusion. But she swallowed the words. Days passed with a fragile normalcy. Claire tried harder than ever to be the wife James deserved and the stepmother Evan needed. She encouraged Evan to focus on his photography, even helped him set up a small exhibit at a local cafe. Evan blossomed under her support, and for a while, the emotional storm calmed. But feelings don't disappear so easily. One afternoon, while helping Evan prepare his photos for the exhibit, their hands brushed. It was a small touch, but it sent a ripple through both of them. Evan looked at her with eyes full of hope and hesitation. "Claire," he said quietly, "I don't want to lose you." "Not like this." She looked back, pain flashing across her face. "You won't lose me. But some things we have to let go, even if it hurts." That night, Claire lay awake thinking about everything: her love for James, her feelings for Evan, and the lines she had crossed emotionally. She realized that the heart can be complicated, but the right thing wasn't always the easiest. The next morning, she sat Evan down in the kitchen, the sunlight streaming through the window. "We need to be honest with ourselves," she said gently. "What we feel is real, but we can't act on it. It would hurt so many people." Evan nodded slowly, the weight of the truth settling on him. "I understand," he said. I needed to say it." They agreed to give each other space. Claire focused on strengthening her relationship with James, while Evan began looking into returning to college, determined to build his own life. Over time, the emotional distance helped. Evan grew more confident, his insecurities slowly fading as he found purpose through his art and education. Claire supported him from afar, proud of his progress, but careful to maintain boundaries. One quiet evening, Claire and James sat together watching the sunset. She rested her head on his shoulder, grateful for the stability they shared. But in her heart, a small part of her mourned the "what if that never was." Evan called from college, his voice stronger, lighter. He told her about new friends, classes, and dreams he was chasing. Claire smiled, feeling a bittersweet pride. She knew that sometimes love isn't about possession or romance. Sometimes it's about caring deeply while knowing when to step back. Claire and Evan had crossed a line emotionally, but they found the strength to honor what was right. Their story wasn't about forbidden love or heartbreak. Was about understanding, growth, and the difficult choices that come with caring for someone deeply. And in that quiet acceptance, they both found peace,